Running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans, welcome to Talking in Ovals. I am Alex Cuesta. My partner in crime over there is Dave Hyatt. What's going on, my brother?
The New Jersey Meet of Champions in cross country is a wrap, and what a meet that it was. Ton of our former guests had amazing meets from the individual winner on the female side. The top two teams coaches were on our show. What a fantastic meet. Times were flying, and it never disappoints. It was great as it is every single year.
And you know, it's insane to think that the NJSIAA would ever consider getting rid of it when every single year it puts up and it produces. But we'll talk a little bit more as we get over to our PR section. Today is Monday, November 13th of 2023, episode 64 of the show. If you like what you hear today, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go look us up on the socials at Talking in Ovals. Before we jump into anything else, I want to talk about last week's show. We had an absolute blast, talked for an hour and a half to, two people that I could say, I never thought, I would say two of my favorite people, but honestly, when you talk to Robbie and Josette Andrews, it all of a sudden just feels like you're talking to old friends. They are two of the nicest people. I mean, I don't know if I've ever used the word cute on air, but the cutest couple you'll freaking see. Like, they are just adorable as they interact. It's amazing.
Jersey legends,
the world's fastest married milers. And Robbie, Josette, sorry for calling you guys adorable. But, I mean, it was just awesome to see. They were such a great time. Hearing Josette's story about getting into running, now being, an elite 1500 meter runner. I think pretty soon, the nation's best 1500 meter runner.
5K too, maybe.
And 5K jumping up in there as well. I'm pumped to see where she goes. And, just hearing how different paths they were, because we had Robbie on so long ago, and just hearing their different paths to getting to greatness. So that was an awesome show. Go back and give it a listen. As Dave alluded to, we got to give a shout out to our former guests here. First, Emma Zawatsky coming back, defending her Meet of Champs championship last year, breaking, she went sub 18, right?
1752, and Paige Shepard from Union Catholic was 1754.
And Paige is a freshman, so just think of that. But Union Catholic, we had on Peyton Hollis, who is one of the senior leaders over there at Union Catholic. They ended up winning the meet handedly. They ran great. And then, like you mentioned, Dave, Sean McCafferty and Chris Tefelsky, CBA in Westfield, finishing 1-2, both of our former guests there in the Meet of Champs. And Tefelsky getting the honors of being the greatest public school in the history of New Jersey to finish there. And a storybook season's not over. They got regionals coming up. They're a top 10 team in the country, which, is rare for a public school to be breaking in to the top 10. So, what they've been doing, I know Coach McCafferty, Coach Tefelsky, going to get their boys ready, going to go do something special. Union Catholic as well. Emma's going to do some great things. So we love it. We only have the best on this show. That's all it is. Only the best. And we bring all the luck. So this week we have another amazing guest. And what's weird to me, Dave, I had this man's title at some point over in the program. And now I look at his accolades and I am fully undeserving of being anywhere close to that.
I love you, Alex, but it's a big upgrade for your old alma mater.
I would have stepped aside if he was interested. If I would have been like, get me out of here, I don't know anything. So I'm excited. Billy Poole-Harris, he's the assistant coach over at my alma mater, Marist College, for the men and women, for both cross country and track and field. What's going on, Coach?
Man, nothing. We're ending cross country. Track is about to kick up and go full throttle with 2 meets in December. So I'm just working, getting our young Red Foxes prepped and primed for a good season in 2023 and 2024.
And, and as coach, the director of Marist, Sarah Pete, says, this is the real long season. Indoor is the long season, especially if you were in college, especially Northeast. This is it. The brunt of your running is right here in indoor. Outdoor feels like a blip compared to that. But Coach, we'll talk about Marist track in a little bit. I want to start off talking about you. So you did a little bit of running yourself. Most of our guests have. I want to know, when did you get the spark to want to jump into the sport of track and field as an athlete?
Oh, wow. This is going way back to when I was in sixth grade. Early on, I lived in the inner city of Chicago, and I didn't have an opportunity to go play with, the neighborhood kids and things like that. Kind of lived in a rough neighborhood. And then my mom had a great idea. She was like, "Hey, let's not die." So we moved into my grandmother's house in the western part of the Chicagoland area, just the first western suburb out of Chicago. And that's when I was able to just play around with kids and stuff. And it was like, wow, I don't have to stay in the house all day. For 16 hours, I can go out and run and have fun and play football and things like that. So that's kind of where I got the spark for athletics, but more specifically for running. I remember hanging out with a friend. His family ran 5Ks early on, and we were doing the mile test in gym. And he was like, "Hey, come run with me," So we started running, and needless to say, I beat him at the end. Like, I just edged him out, and I broke the junior high or the elementary record in the mile. I like this. So I just had some community there, and then I went on to junior high and started competing from there, running cross country. So that's kind of where I got my spark from. Definitely the competitiveness of not playing basketball, because that's what you're supposed to do when you're in the inner city of Chicago. Moving to a different pasture, and then having a little bit of community.
I find that interesting, and your story is different than, a lot of people. And I like that fact that the spark tends to be different, some similarities, but yours tends to be different. You're the first person that we've had that's like, you got out of a situation that wasn't ideal for, a child to be around, got into a better one. And then, instead of gravitating to all the other sports, it was a fitness test that's like, hey, I'm good at this. Let's roll with this. So, I love all the different stories. So talk to me a little bit. Take me to junior high, take me through high school and all that stuff. What are some of your best memories of being a runner?
Oh, man. Well, the first day in a junior high, again, I was just hanging out with some friends running and kind of, beating them at the line. So the first day of junior high, I missed tryouts and I wasn't allowed to be on the team. So any junior high kid that wants to do something, they go call their mom. "Hey, mom, I want to get on the team." And so she called up the administration and things. They got to the head coach and they were like, "Hey, this kid wants to run. Give him a tryout." So when I got a tryout, I came to practice the next day with a suitcase. And they were like, "What are you doing with a suitcase?" I'm like, "We're going cross country, right? Are we going to California or somewhere in the Western?" Like, I had no idea what I was doing.
That is amazing. That is fantastic.
I had no idea.
That is great.
I live with 5 sisters and a mother. I was like, I need to get away from these women. So I want to go cross country. But so they shortly thereafter explained to me what I was doing. I'm like, "Oh, I did this already." The friend that I ran with in sixth grade was there. So I was like, okay. So I was out there with basketball shoes on, long shorts, and I went out running again. And there was this guy that was in front of us. I'm like, "Dude, let's go run up with him." So I didn't beat him, but I was second. So needless to say, I didn't, it wasn't a tryout anymore. It was like, all right, we have a low stick on our team. So I did that through 7th and 8th grade. And then afterwards, I went to high school. And in the area, we were running against other teams, and we started to form a bond because all of the junior highs filtered into the high school. And so that's where I kind of started, the whole running thing. Like, people were coming out to see me. I was like, this is fun. So yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time.
That might be one of the greatest stories I ever heard on this show.
That is,
no,
I love it. Coming in with the suitcase. Now, when you were packing your suitcase and you were about to leave that day, did your mama look at you and go, "What are you doing, Billy?"
She was working a couple of jobs.
Okay, so you got to
mom.
So snuck out really quick.
Yeah, it was, man. She was like, "Listen, I see you when you get home." I'm like, "See you when you get home, Ma. I'll be in California."
That's incredible.
No. But she was working a lot. She had, 2 jobs. She was supporting us. And, it was just more of, hey, you're going to do these things on your own. And public transportation in Chicago is a rough business. So, we were doing that at a very young age. And so I was able to kind of have, I was taking care of myself early on in my childhood because I did have my sisters, but I was just kind of on my own, doing my own thing because I was the only boy. So they was like, wherever he's going, he'll be back. I'm like, so.
I love the basketball shoes and long shorts. Like, I'm just gonna run. I have no idea what running shoes are, what I'm supposed to wear. I got a suitcase. I'm going to California in my high tops.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Felines. I was in Felines.
Felines, nice.
Felines, yes.
I love it. So talk about high school. You continue to run through high school. What are some memories that you have? Any successes, any big races? Give us some of your favorite memories of going through high school.
Oh, man. Well, Donald Sage and Tim Keller were probably some of the biggest runners in my era, along with Ed and Jorge Torres. We had
Ed and Jorge on the show.
Oh, nice.
A couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean,
we had them on together. They were fantastic.
Those guys, we used to just watch and marvel. Tim Keller, he's an unsung hero in Illinois. He was the one that it was Donald Sage's last year at York High School. And so we're down at O'Brien Stadium and we're watching them just click off 60, 62, 60 in the 2 mile. That's when he broke the state record. It was like 840 something. Craig Version had the record during that time. And so we just watched Tim Keller take over the controls from lap 1, and Donald Sage was just hanging out, playing possum. And then all of a sudden, Donald Sage, I believe it was a 55.6, the last quarter of a 2 mile. And back in the early 2000s, late 90s, it was awesome. So those are some of my fondest memories, just watching those guys get after it and then getting some inspiration from them and also the coaches. York High School, 28, state titles, and they ran the table early on with NXR or NXN rather. And so just seeing those, examples of dominance and seeing those, seeing just year after year, people trying to figure out, how do we beat York? How do we beat York? How do we beat York? It was fun. And then, and just, being a kid, running around with your friends, and, that's where you create the bonds, being with the guys, pasta parties, taking trips late October to, haunted houses and things like that. Those were memories that are, encapsulated in I think all high school runners, men and women, as they go off and remember their early days of running.
Absolutely. There was nothing better than that bond of that high school team.
Yeah.
And so you were a distance runner, right? You decided you were doing 5Ks and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you feel that, growing up in the inner city kind of translated to making you a distance runner, especially where you had to be tough? And like you said, you were on your own a lot. And you have a team, but the life of a runner while you're competing is solitary, right? And you have to dig deep. You have to be tough. You have to sit there and go through moments where you're like, I could just stop, and then force yourself to keep going. So did you attribute any of your successes or just, you're doing the sport to being able to, have your life that way in the beginning? Yeah,
I would say this: distance running, it's definitely a community. You do it alone, but you're doing it for somebody else. And when I coach, I tell them, hey, you're doing this for your friend, not your teammate. There's a difference, in that. And so when I was running and I needed to rely on some very deep thoughts. And I had to, and I was going through some adversity. It was more of, we're from Chicago, we're Midwestern, we're tough, we're union workers, we're, we people that, survive cold winters, we do those things that are tough, and everybody has their own tough. From the suburbs of Chicago to New York to Philadelphia, anywhere, everybody has their own tough, and it's how you cultivate it in that moment when it's really tough. And so, yeah, I definitely reflected on some of those, times growing up, or, wanting to run for a teammate or a friend of mine to kind of get me through. But yeah, there were many days where I'm like, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore. I can do other things, but it always calls you back. So yeah.
It does.
So you're in high school. What was your story after high school? Did you go running college? Did you do something else? And then take it from there into how you got into the coaching aspect.
Gotcha. So I immediately after high school, first generation college athlete, immediately after high school. And I had some difficulties there. I didn't know the landscape of college, and I started to, run. I was competing for UIC Halstead. So University of Illinois at Chicago. One of my coaches, Jim Canadle, is One of my good mentors to this day. He's still around since retired, and he has 2 books that he's published.
Nice.
But yeah, no, he told me, you got to get your degree. You got to get your degree. And he was telling me this while he was telling me to leave campus because I failed out of college. And so I took a year off, kind of did a hiatus thing, worked, little odd end, got jobs and gigs and things like that. And so I got back into school, went to a Division III school. After I went to a Division III school, I started coaching during that time because Division III, you can essentially not say do everything, but you can do anything. And so I was coaching high school while competing, while going to school. And so that's kind of how I found coaching running, and during that time. So yeah, it was a very interesting time during my early 20s.
So what made you want to be a coach? What made you ultimately think like, this is something, because it does, like, everyone thinks they can coach, right? And then you go and people start to do it and they realize it's not, it's a difficult thing. It's not just telling people what to do. It's trying to, as a college kid going to coach high school kids, you're as close enough to be their friend. So it's like, why should they listen to you? Why should they take your advice? Should they trust you to have their best interests in mind? So what made you want to get into that?
It's a good question. I was a captain when I was in high school, from my freshman year all the way to my senior year.
Nice.
And I really love, and I service people. I'm always in people's service. I'm always a giver. And it was fun to me. And I took it as a big responsibility, being a high school captain. And then that kind of transitioned over. I was not the captain on my college team. And I, just monitored. And I'm always curious about stuff. I'm super curious. I'm like, how does this captain work? I'm going to just kind of sit back. And I didn't get a chance to maybe even become in that leadership role because I exited college early, took a hiatus, and then started up college again. And so at that point, I was like, I need to help these kids, because again, we were at Proviso East High School, and during what's his name, Michael Finley. He was a Dallas Maverick
he was
guard for a while. He went to
very good guard too for Dallas for a long time. Very good player.
So so he was in the area. He didn't run track or anything like that, but that's just where he went to school, and then that's the school that I coached at. My first high school job while I was still in college. And so I did that, and it was good. The kids listened to me because, again, they looked like me and we were distance runners. And they're like, wow, distance runner? Okay, cool. And so we started talking, and they knew that I was a collegiate athlete, and any high school kid that knows that you're a high school athlete or a collegiate athlete, they're like, wow, I'm going to listen to you. And it was fun because now, again, I'll go back to my leadership role, small leadership role, that is, when I was in high school, and I took it with a badge of honor, and I wanted to make sure I did it right. And so that's kind of how it started. And then listening to their stories, understanding the situation, it was very similar to mine in some regard. And that's why I go back. My tough was tough back in the city of Chicago, and their tough was tough in the suburbs, the western suburbs of the Chicagoland area. So I kind of gravitated to that. And I always love to make those student athlete or coaches connections to help drive their training as we move forward. So that's kind of what stuck with me since then. That it was a big group of kids that really wanted to be good and needed the resources to do that.
And, and I think anyone can, attest to, we've all had captains in sports and things like that. There makes a difference between having a good captain, a good leader, someone that, is there for the team and not just essentially there for themselves. And I'm not knocking any high school kids that aren't great captains. You're in high school. You don't know what you're doing half the time. You're trying to figure it out yourself as well. Even in college, you're grown men and women, but you're dealing with so many other things going on, so I get it. Being a captain, being a leader is not something that can be taught, and not everyone has the ability to do it. So it makes a huge difference. And when you see the response from your peers, when you're a good captain, you can tell most of the time when you're doing something good. So, there is something to being a captain and being a good one that helps you build those leadership qualities.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can't disagree with you at all.
So go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say, so you're in college, you're competing, you're coaching high school. Where does your career transition from then? Like, did you stay at that school for a while? Did you go somewhere else? Like, I'm really fascinated to hear more about your story, 'cause it's different than others that we've had.
Yeah, so I started there back in the early let's say about 2004, 2005. And then after I was there, my transition from one college to another, working odd and end jobs, and they were paying good money. So I'm like, all right, I'll do this. I'm living on my own, in an apartment with some roommates. And I was like, all right, I'll do this. And so then I did that for about 3 or 4 years. And then I used to work a lot of meets. I can time a meet. I can, run, director. I can do it all, jack of all trades when it comes to track. And so I ran into this gentleman that coached at Whitney Young, where I was at for 10 years. He's like, hey, I see you at a lot of meets. You work a lot. How would you like to come coach for me? You're a distance coach, right? And I remember you back in Chicago, and so he knew who I was. I'm like, yeah, I coach distance. Let's do it. So I went back to, the city after being out there for a little bit to coach full time. And I was obviously close to family and things like that. So yeah, I was out in Whitney Young for Whitney Young High School since 2006, all the way through until 2018. And so, it was just being in the community, filling a gap where it needed to be filled. And, people kind of took a look at what I was doing, which was some good, honest work. And I got a shot at, coaching my own outfit from there. And boy, was that fun.
And I had to make a quick thing, because you don't knock the fact that while you were over at Whitney Young, coach, you guys won the first public school in Chicago to win a sectional championship in 2016.
For Class 3A, yes. I can't go without saying Andrew Edelman. He was a very good coach in the city. He was in the second middle section, which was Class 2A. He won a state championship, so kudos to him. But the Class 3A is the toughest. It's a barn burner. You got some amazing teams out there that honestly always represent the Midwest very well at Nike Cross Nationals and Foot Locker and Brooks PR, all those postseason meets. Midwest definitely show up. So yeah, we won that, and I don't think another high school has done that yet in the city of Chicago. So It's pretty fun.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So when do you start jumping into your collegiate career? Because you're at Whitney Young for over a decade, right? A little over
years,
a decade.
Yeah.
And obviously you've eventually gone to college because you're over at Marist College. So when did you start your collegiate coaching career, and how tough was it to leave something that you were there in Whitney Young?
We're going to put a pin in how tough it was to leave. But I had some good success. I had some kids that went to some great colleges, and I just started to get accustomed to the recruiting process from the coaches that were recruiting my athletes. And so I'm listening to them, and understanding what they want in an athlete. And I'm like, I've done this about 3 or 4 years in a row, and these kids are going to some great colleges: Stanford, Duke, Carnegie Mellon, Williams, Notre Dame. It was awesome. And University of Chicago, you have people that ran there as well. Wash U. I mean, I can go on, but it was just like, wow, I love the high academics, because we were at a high academic school at Whitney Young, and we had some great athletes there. And so just the combination of the two piqued my interest, but I left in 2009 to Chicago State. And then I immediately came back because I wanted to pursue my master's. And so I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, I will never leave again. And we're going to be here for a bit. So I would say I did not coach one cross country season at Whitney Young, because I would try to do it on the collegiate level, and it failed miserably. So I'm like, this is not my time. So I went back to high school, continued to coach at Whitney Young. And then a friend of mine, he's at Tulane right now. He was like, Billy, you should come on over. You volunteer, come over, get your feet wet, understand what it is to be a collegiate coach, and, understand the administration work, the care logs and things like that. And then we'll see what happens. So I did that for one season in the year of 2019, just before COVID. And so I went to Northern Illinois, and then after that, I went to Indiana State. But we're going to backtrack just for a second. When you said how hard it was to leave, it was probably one of the most difficult things I've done in my life. I've been there for a number of years. I mean, a host of athletes I've coached, both men and women. and started the track club during that time. And some of these kids have grown not only through the track club, but then to my tutelage in high school. And when we made that announcement, it was senior night, and I'm sure I scarred these kids, the seniors that was there, because we read our plaque that we give our seniors, and I just started crying uncontrollably. And they were like, he's not emotional. Why is he emotional right now? Like, something's going on. This must really hit him hard. And so after that, I sat down and I told them, and I was like, I won't be returning next year. They're like, okay, cool. We got you through the spring, and, we'll be all right. We'll say our goodbyes in the summer. They're like, no, I'm leaving tomorrow. So everybody, it was 177 people at our dinner. And everybody came up to hug me, give me a handshake. Some kid had an outburst like, it was divorcing a parent. That's what I've equated it to. And so when I gave a handshake to the final person, I just couldn't look anybody in the eye because I just felt so much guilt and grief. When I looked down, there was water on the floor. And I want to say that those were tears. Maybe it was somebody, trying to mop up and get us out of there because we were there for a long time. But no, it just made me realize how much of an impact I made in that community, and it was really hard. Really, really hard to leave.
Yeah, I mean, there's never a great time to leave. Like you might think, oh, well, I have a good freshman class, I'll leave in 4 years. Then you have another great group of kids come in. So it's something that you just have to decide and just do, because if you keep waiting for like a time where it's going to be easier, it's never going to happen. It's just that you just have to make, because you're always going to have great kids and more kids coming in. So it's definitely tough.
Yeah, definitely. So,
and go ahead, Bill.
No, go ahead, please.
And and it's like, and for anybody that hasn't coached, you should, because there is no better feeling than watching your athletes have success. And, it's crushing when you leave, but I have to say, like, there are titles that people have, right? Like doctor, like things like that. There's nothing cooler than, to this day, I'm seeing an athlete I coached, I don't know, when I got out back in 2014, when I was coaching over at Manchester, doing some football and stuff. And to this day, they're grown men. They're starting to have families, things like that. And if I see them, hey, coach, like, it's like, it doesn't, and there's not a cooler feeling than like having that impact.
Well, I mean, Alex, you called me coach like the first 20, 30 episodes.
You're still coach. You'll never, that's the thing. Like, it never stops. Like, it doesn't. Like, he's Coach Hyatt. Even though that's how I knew, for you that don't know, Billy, he was my coach back in high school for about a season.
Nice.
And, we the reason why we started this show is because me and him are the only nerds that would text each other about track. And we were talking about Worlds 2 years ago now. And he was like, let's do a show. And I'm like, okay. Man. So, because I was already podcasting at that.
That's a nice genesis right there.
Oh, yeah. So, it's just something that it just doesn't stop. Like, coaches have such an impact. And, I don't think we realize it in the moment, right? Like, I guarantee through your, decade plus there, you didn't realize the impact you were having on these people.
Yeah,
until that happens, and you're just like, damn, I really do matter.
and that's the thing. Like, you don't realize you're in high school and elementary school. When I coached the track club, you're in their homes. The things that you say, the things that you imitate, the things that you model are you have a little bit more power sometimes than the parents. And it's like, I can't have, Xavier clean his room. All right, I'll tell him, Xavier, if you clean your room, I'm going to not have you run tomorrow. And the next day, how did you do that? Like, sometimes we were parenting parents that had first kids. And when I had my first child, it was like, this is easy. Now granted, not having a baby, I want to preface it with, as they got older, like, it's very difficult to raise a child, a baby at that. But I took it on as a coaching job. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but that's what it was. It was like, I'm not afraid to, help a kid. I'm not afraid to change a diaper. I can do, pack in a bag and then go into the grocery store. And if they have an outburst, I'm okay. We've seen this happen before. Tears are not anything new to me. If I see somebody cry, I'm like, you'll be all right in about 15 minutes. And this could be a 40-year-old woman or 40-year-old man. It's like, you'll be okay. Like, don't you have any empathy? I do, but only when it matters. You're crying over something that, is not important right now. So it's, I have a weird, cynical way of looking at life through the coaching lens.
Because you deal with a lot in coaching. You deal with a lot of crocodile tears. You deal with a lot of that type of stuff. And it's kind of like, when it's real. And when it's not. And then there's the times where you think it might not be real and it is. And you're just like, oh, shoot, messed up the start of this one.
Right.
Gotta recover.
I found myself saying, would you like for me to listen or would you like for me to solve the problem? Because we're problem solvers. We can't help it. That's default. So, and I've learned that in my younger years is to just sit back and listen, and then see, okay, how would you like to proceed?
That's a good question, though. But, would you like for me to listen or solve? And Billy, think of this. One of the people that had a big impact on me is Chuck. So how scary is that?
But what I would say too, like I also think with this sport, especially on the high school level, I think it's why you see so many high schools have the same coach for years and decades. Whereas in college, there might be a lot more movement here and there. But in high school, you just build this bond with that school and the community and the parents. And then you have the siblings. And it's like, especially with cross country and distance running, like sometimes your sprint coaches might go from here to here. But with that distance crew who runs all 3 seasons, you just build this rapport with the whole community. And then you might start working in like you said, helping out with the youth kids. And then, you build this huge bond as a distance coach. And I know here in New Jersey, we've had coaches who have been around for 30, 40 years, their identity becomes being with that school. And so many wonderful kids, they've had such an impact on their, I remember when my coach retired, he was there 35, 40 years. There were 500 people at the retirement dinner, people from the 70s, when they won the Penn relays, and not just the great athletes that they had, the lesser athletes who they taught and learned from them, just skills in life. High school distance running is an amazing thing for any coach.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I won't disagree. I will not disagree. That's awesome.
The goal is to get old enough to be that grouchy coach. That you become the grouchy coach that's out of touch, taking that 22-year-old fresh out of college going, kid, you don't know anything. Shut up and listen.
What's this Strava shit that we're talking about?
What is going on here? Get away from me. I don't want to hear your nonsense. This has been
what are these $200 shoes that we have going on here? I used to run on Cinder.
You're right. And we used to fall on Cinder and get the cream to rub it off.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, Billy, I want to talk before we jump into anything else. So you get your shot at fully taken over at Bard, right? Full on cross country, track and field, everything. And when I have to say, you have a ton of success at Bard. What was that like, taking over a program and, bringing Bard to heights that they haven't seen?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was a program that they were building, and they've been around for a very long time. And if you quantify success by the records that were broken, they're great. And I quantify it as we had a fully operational program. From what I understood when I got there was they had some success in a league that they were in prior. And then as they now moved to this newer league, it was tough. It was the Liberty League, Ithaca, RPI. They had 41 guys in the 5K 2 years ago when I was there. As a coach, Vassar, they just made a bid to the NCAA, I believe.
Good schools. Yep.
And so these were some good schools, academically high achieving. I'm like, oh, this is Whitney Young 2.0. And then we get to Bar, I'm like, oh, we need to lift this, because they were just newly cemented into the league and they needed the resources. And so when I came in, unbeknownst to them, I added 3 varsity sports to the department. So they kind of figured it out. I blew the budget out of the water. And so we got there, they had cross country, and then they had outdoor track. And I didn't know, they just said track. Because again, when we're working with people, because our sport is super complicated, and we continue to make it more complicated. And it shouldn't be that complicated, but people only know it as running.
It's the oldest sport. I don't know how is this hard. It's the oldest sport.
Understandable. I can't disagree with you. Cannot disagree with you.
It's gonna be hard.
And so when we started, I was like, so they like, can you get us a track schedule ready to go? Because we want to post that on the website. I'm like, okay. And they talked to me about this in the fall. And so I'm like, all right. So I started planning indoor meets at the Armory, at Ocean Breeze, at the New Balance track. And all of a sudden they were like, Billy, it's the end of indoor. They was like, you just ran through your budget. I'm like, what do you mean? We just started track. Like, no, we only had indoor. We only had outdoor track. We never had an indoor track at all. I'm like, oh, well, you do now. so
we have entries. I don't know what we're going to do. Like, we're entered. You can't get these back.
The first thing I did was email the commissioner of the Liberty League. It's like, hey, we're going to be joining you at the indoor conference meet. And so we had to build up, times and performances to be entered into the meet. And so all of a sudden we were there. So that's kind of where the success is. It's kind of flawed in that sense. So it's kind of mass, over embellished, if you will. I just added a season and then we started to do some success outdoor. But I mean, it was fun. I mean, I had a lot of support there, obviously, because we had an indoor season and now it's been integrated full time. And so it was just building the bones that it needed to be successful. And I think that's what I've done when I left there, because you always want to leave something better than you found it. So, kudos to Bard. They brought me out here to the Northeast, which is a blessing in itself. And then just, having them allow me to be a springboard to now Marist. And I'm tired of moving. I've moved about 27 times in my life total. I'm done. I'm done moving.
So being in the Northeast now, do you notice how much bigger indoor track is than maybe other parts of the
I've always noticed that when I was in the Midwest in high school. For a long time, the Armory, Nike, the New York Armory at the Nike complex, got to get that title right. You would always have amazing times in these weird events called the 1,000. I never knew. Oh, the 600.
What is it?
What?
600. One of 400 and then hope.
Yeah.
That's all the 600.
Right.
1,000.
Yeah. And so obviously, you have some great facilities, still do. I mean, You've inspired the Midwest to build Gately Stadium in Chicago. And so everything is kind of moving slowly but surely, as we did when we started this country, from the east to the west. And so we had a taste of that as soon as I leave the Chicagoland area. They opened Gately Stadium. But no, you guys and gals here in the Northeast, you did it right for the indoor. Boston, BU. Let's talk about complicated.
The magic carpet, baby. The magic carpet. So
and
good.
That's where your converted times came from bank tracks to oversized track to flat tracks, is because BU would go there and people just run the show with it. Yeah. And so, you guys did it right.
Listen,
you guys did it right.
That place, I always say it. There was a race this winter where 75 college kids broke 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in one meet.
Yep.
That was my first place where I saw 4 minutes get broken. I think it was two Providence kids. Both ran 3:58. Then not even that they broke it by, and I was a freshman. It was my first time seeing a sub 4. I've seen some people get close in hye school. I had Craig Forries in my year over in Jersey, and Craig I think he finished 4:08 was his PR in high school, so he was ridiculously fast. I mean, 4:08 now gets you like third in the meet of champs. It's like stupid how fast kids are, but so you had a lot of success. Obviously, you're at Marist. Me being, an alumni and, a former coach there, I'm elated that you are there. I think that you're going to help raise that program to new heights. And we already have amazing coaches there. And it's just a great addition. So I want to talk about the Windy City Hammers Youth Track Club.
Yes.
What was your reasoning for starting this?
It's kind of the same. I mean, I love just to help out. Going back to that premise, which is true. I had some kids that were like, hey, we see you running around, the school, and we don't go here. We go to this neighboring school. Would you mind helping us coach us because our coach, doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know how to help us. So it's off season. I'm like, sure, I'll help you. So I just started giving them drills, started doing this. I was really like hands off, like, here, run this, run that. They got good, obviously, just by the nature of doing things repetitively and having a practice.
And they obviously had the drive to want to do it, to come to you, and that helps. That always helps.
Right. And so
more than half the battle there.
Exactly. Yeah. So all of a sudden, they start, and these kids were masterful at Twitter and Instagram. They started posting stuff with them, and I'm back getting ready for, my other practices or trying to go home. They still there at the school. Yeah, we just got done with Coach Billy and we're doing all this stuff. We didn't have a website until we started getting to 100 people. We went from 14 to maybe 30 to 35. And then all of a sudden, the third year of our existence, we had 117 kids.
That's incredible.
And I'm just like, whoa. So there was a need. And so we worked out the west side of Chicago where Whitney Young is housed. And then we had to open up a branch on the south side. And one of my good friends to this day, Phil Wallace, he had a Chicago Striders Youth Track Club. I'm like, dude, we should just merge our programs together. So that's when we had the south side branch. I had the west side branch. And for about, I think from 2012 to 2018, for like 6 or 7 years, we just continued to grow. It's still alive and well today, over 200 people, 200 athletes. They just came back from the USATF cross country association meet where all of the kids qualified. I think it was like 35 kids in cross country, which is awesome. The biggest ever. And Stephanie Dahlgren, she coaches at Lincoln Park High School in Chicago, and she took over the driver's seat, and she's been doing a masterful job ever since I left. So it's just been great, man. So yeah, it was a need in Chicago, and we feel that we fill the gap in that sense, and it's been a good thing. So it's awesome.
So I know we try to, like, especially as coaches, we try to keep our egos aside, right? But tell me that wasn't a little ego boost where you're seeing, okay, it's working for 12, and now it's working for 30, and did that kind of help you? When you're coaching, you got to have a little confidence that you know something, right? That you have knowledge to supply. But when you see kids outside of a program that's, built for you there, Whitney, like there's a track program already there. You're just taking it over, right?
Right.
But when you see outside and what you're doing is still working for kids that you don't necessarily see every day in the building, all that type of stuff, did that kind of confirm for you, like, okay, I at least know what I'm doing and I want to continue to do this? Like, did that help make you want to stay on this path?
Well, I don't know what I'm doing half the time. Let's be clear. It's about the support that you have with the people. I look at the president of the United States, anyone from the start to current, they all have people to help. They're not doing that by themselves, right? They have other people, other branches, other entities to help them drive their message.
Yep.
And we had that in Chicago. So I will, to this day, not take credit for look at what I did. I can't, because there's so many parents were there. I mean, parents are helping us, get flights. There were several kids that didn't have the ability to get flights out. And so they used their frequent flyer miles to, book tickets and things like that. So it was definitely a family approach to it. And so only thing I was the soundboard. Yeah, I know a little bit about training here and there, and I know how to interact with kids, I want to say, and, being the leader, understanding like this is what we're doing, and then galvanizing the coaches, having them, move in a direction where it's going to benefit the kids, and identifying those coaches that don't have an ego necessarily so we can work together. Those were the cool things that I was fortunate enough to have during that time. So I was up all night on the computer, doing the website. I'll say I was masterful at that stuff because I did build my computer back in the day from scratch, from Tiger Direct.
There you go.
But no, it was so many more people that was helping me out that it's unnoticed. But yeah, they made me look good. But I don't know some of the things I do half the time.
So I want to ask you, you've been coaching for quite some time, and you've mentioned like the power of the internet and technology. How has some of your philosophies or training changed over years with the innovation of new things that have come out, or with the ability to go online and see what other coaches are doing and things that are working for them? Or have you just kind of stayed how you were? Because I know a lot of coaches who have changed, and some of the way, maybe they don't train his kids as hard every day, and they've incorporated rest just, because they have learned things from either reading books or what they see online or technology. So has any of that impacted how you change maybe your ways of coaching over the years?
So great question. And we're going something that I'm super passionate about. And it's education. And so I think what technology has done is affirm one thing: too much information can hurt a person.
Oh, yeah.
And so with that being said, I always go to coaching clinics. I've never not gone to a coaching clinic. I actually, I've gone to multiple, USA, TFCCCA. I've been to high schools. I've traveled. I drove to South Carolina to speak with Curtis Fry and Ralph Mann and, Sarah Gilbert Smith. You just learn from people. I don't think that the internet does a good job, but there's some benefits to it. And on the youth side, I'll tell you about that, or my philosophy in a second. But as a coach, what the internet has affirmed to me is that you definitely need to have a face-to-face interaction. Yep. And I'm going to use the example of Billy Blanks. Everybody loved Billy Blanks. That man was the Tybo boxing.
Tybo, yep.
Right. Everybody has the cassette tapes. But if you struggled with doing his movements, he did not stop, come out of the TV, correct your form or your motivation. It was a big swipe, one size fit all. And they loved it. The energy was there. The music was there. The commercials were there. The lights were there. But you had this person that really struggled to do a particular movement, and then they lost motivation afterwards. Yep. And so if you go to coaches and you have that sit down with them, I kid you not, I have known to fly to go meet a coach for coffee, for a weekend, go get some shops to go see some things. But I will come to you. If you're in Idaho, I'll fly out to Idaho. That's investment in the person. This is a human element when we talk about coaching. And I think that's getting missed. You can log in, how do you do box jumps for, long jumpers? And they tell you. But what's the scenario? What if I have an athlete that, one leg is bigger than the other? How do I modify or accommodate that? We have a lot of those situations when it comes to coaching, and we go to what's easy for us, which is Strava or YouTube, and we try to get that information to supercharge our understanding, and then we fail when we apply it to particular athletes. Now, I'm saying that as a general statement, and there's obviously, pros and cons to it. But from what I've seen and from what I've heard, sometimes it just affirms that I'm doing it right when I'm staying with being in front of people, talking about, scenarios or situations and listening to what they have to say.
Yeah, I think coaching, just like as an athlete, you can always evolve and get better. Like what you did 10 years ago might not be what's best now. And absolutely. I love how you said, you can't train every kid the exact same way. Every kid is unique, just like as a teacher, Yeah. You can't teach every kid. Some kids learn in different ways, and you have to know which kids maybe I could be harder on, or this kid I have to ease off, not just in their training, but in how you speak to them and the way that motivates them. And you might not always get that because you read a great book. You might get great training ideas, which is great too, but that doesn't give you the personal interaction that you need to succeed as a coach.
Amen.
And just you saying about how you're willing to go and travel just to talk face to face. And I think, like you said, that's being lost too, being a true student of your craft. Because like you said, I can go look it up. I can go on Wikipedia. I can go on FlowTrack and watch a workout that NAU did and try and modify for my kids and things like that. And it's like, I'm sorry, there are very few schools that are NAU. and their workouts, modified or not, might not fit for your program. And so, and
volume, intensity, the time of the week, the time of the season.
But there's a difference, right?
Absolutely.
Between going to NAU, talking to coach, and being like, hey, this is what my guys run. Mm-hmm. What would you recommend? I love this workout that you did with your team, but obviously we're not. What would you recommend? Oh, this is what I would do if I was sitting with this group. Because something, more than likely, those coaches that are coaching these elite programs were coaching programs similar to yours 5-10 years ago, because they had to get up somehow, right? Absolutely. So they could sit there and go, no, this is what worked for my guys when I had them, and I had a bunch of 15-30 guys.
Yeah.
Not sub 15 guys, but they're 15-30. How'd I get them down to 15 flat? Oh, this is how I did it. And like you said, there's something to be said. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that you're always willing to go learn more and legitimately learn more and be a student and exchange ideas too, because, everyone wants to pick each other's brain, especially now in coaching, where I feel like it's much more of a fraternity, and it's growing as a fraternity than it ever has been.
Absolutely.
And, I said one of my favorite things when I was over there coaching was, going to meets, going to stay at hotels, and talking to other coaches at those hotels, like hanging out, getting to know them, not only just talking about track and stuff, but just talking about how things are going. Like it's a different type of fraternity that, unless you're doing it, you don't understand it, but it's lots of fun. And I love the fact that you're sitting there going, hey, I just want to keep learning.
That's and you know what? But it's also showing, I think, at all levels. High school kids are faster, college kids, pro kids, when like 15, 20, 30 years ago, you didn't have coaches talking to each other. It was like, this is what I do. I don't want anyone else knowing, like quiet, zip it. Like my high school coach talked to nobody, I mean, love the man, but like now I think there's a lot more and I do think that some technology has played a role in bringing so many people together for certain things. And I do think it's helping at the pro level too, where we're seeing, the distance runners here in this country are really starting to ascend and to take off.
It to your point, and that's the benefit of it. Zoom, we can't thank them enough. I hope I'm not doing a marketing plug for them, but during COVID, that's all we did. I remember having, an adult beverage in my hand. I had 3 or 4 or 5 people on Zoom, and we were just talking training. We didn't know how to process that. We just knew, all right, this is an opportunity now to supercharge our understanding. And we also had the opportunity to learn from more people. So it definitely helps out, but you have to have that face-to-face for sure.
And, also talking, I brought it up on this show and I'll bring it up again. You talked about being a distance coach and stuff. There's no one more neurotic than distance runners. So now you're giving them technology. Now you're giving them an ability to see what their closest competitors are doing and this workout. And why aren't I doing it? Coach, I just saw so-and-so over at this high school. They just dropped this workout. We've never done anything like that. Why aren't we doing that? And you're just looking at them as a coach going, give me your phone. Give me your phone. I want to delete that app because you're driving me crazy.
So again, we go back to technology and how it has affirmed that you can't do what everybody's doing. I said it earlier in your talk. I do not like Strava. I don't like it. Why? Because it's the Facebook or the Instagram or Twitter of running. Mm-hmm. You're comparing yourself to other people, and I think now, way more than it has ever been, it's tough to be a teenager now. It's tough. And I use this example, and I hate to get on my soapbox. I'm not sure.
Go for it. Get on it, man. Get on it. Let's go.
But, back in the day, I could say that now. I'm almost 40, back in the day, but we used to play in the street, flag football. I learned how to rollerblade from watching my other friends do it, play roller hockey, frisbee, ultimate frisbee, baseball, you name it. And we wanted to be the best on the block.
Without a doubt.
Just best on the block. Now you take that and now you put a phone in my hand and I got kids playing roller hockey in Bogota, Colombia. Now I have to go see what they're doing. Go try to mimic what they're doing. I got the stress to try to outdo them with their likes and their videos and things. And now I am stressing out about it all the time. I'm feeling less than myself than just comparing myself to maybe 5 or 6 people in my neighborhood that was the same age as me. There's billions of people now in the world that's my age, and now I have to compete with them. That's too much.
Yep.
And my other point to that is we now see that with social media and then Strava. I'm going to go set the PR for the warm-up loop around, Chicago. And no, you don't have to do that. Maybe your legs are just about to fall off and you're going to get a lower leg injury. Yep. But today is a perfect day. It's 58 degrees. It's partly cloudy and no wind. I'm about to go rip a 442, 1200 meter. And now you get an injury. So why are we doing that? Like there's so much technology now. It's only still used as a tool. So
what I think you need to do, and I think all coaches need to do now, bring back Map My Run and make your athletes start using Map My Run. Because you know what? You had to run slow enough but fast enough to remember what roads you were turning on so that you could go home and get into Map My Run. So you were able to get your mileage.
Map My Run. I had follow our high school coach in his car. That was my Map My Run. We didn't have any technology.
He worked smart, not hard.
We're going here. He would go ahead. He would. It was, but we didn't have it. We had none of this stuff. What I had was an amazing set of teammates, and we all wanted to run for each other, but also, like you said, be the best out of them. And if we could accomplish that, then we'd be better as a team.
Right. We don't want to be the best on our team anymore. We want to be the best in the region. We want to be the best in the country. And we are, if NAU is doing this, or if Providence is doing this, or if UConn's doing this, then that's just what the standard is. No, it's not. Your body is not meant for that just yet. And a lot of people, they see, when we talk about training, I'm like, this is a long time. Freshmen that are trying to run with, trying to make it to nationals their freshman year. No, it's going to probably happen your junior year, maybe senior, because I don't know if you remember there's this thing called COVID, and you got grown men and women that have kids and got married still running in college. Yep. And you have to wait till those waivers are expired before we get back to some normalcy. So you guys got to cut it out.
And one thing, if you're an athlete at high school, college, go sit down with your coach and make a plan. Make a plan. What are your goals? Mm-hmm. Where do you want to be? And that will help your coach and you as an athlete understand the training program. Yeah. And I know that was one thing that Pete was great at Marist, and I guarantee a lot of coaches do it around the country. But if you're a coach and you don't do it, make the time to do it with your athletes. Because not only will you understand where they want to be, you'll be able to sit down and talk to them and say, I understand where you're at. We saw what we did last year. Let's work together to get here. Yeah. And I like, and kind of work together. And then that brings you guys to both an understanding, you, that young man, that young lady. But that's the thing that, like you said, stop looking at everyone else. Look central. And I remember one of the things was you want to beat your own friends. When you were on that team, you just want to whoop up on them.
That's it.
Regardless how good they were. And even if you knew I wasn't going to beat them in the meet, let me get them in this workout. Let me get them here. And so that was the fun of it. And like you said, that's getting lost because everyone wants to have that cool Instagram reel where they outkick or run a crazy workout. And no, it's not.
It's so many things that we could do. And, we're driven by our student athletes these days, which is great. They have they have a lot of voice now. And so we have to cultivate that. We have to sit them down and go back and forth. And I love what you said. Coach Pete does it a lot where he sits.
He's amazing. Yeah.
He talks with our student athletes on a daily. Yep. And if it's time to reevaluate, a lot of coaches don't reevaluate. Like, hey, we're in the middle of the season. You said you want to run this, but we're right here at this time. Well, I was here last year. Why aren't I here now? Let's look at your academic schedule. Let's look at what's going on in your life outside. Are your stress levels too high? Are you eating, drinking, hydrating the same that you did this time last year? Oh, well, Or
you just turned 21.
Exactly, right. Exactly. So, every year there's so many different.
I noticed you haven't been walking to practice with Sarah. Did y'all break up?
I know, right?
Okay. So that all that matters. That really.
And they don't see it. They just look it straight ahead the whole time. I'll give you a great story. I was at another institution and I was with a young lady. We were going to the outdoor conference championship and she was a pole vaulter. She just broke up with her boyfriend.
Ooh.
Within 12 hours before she competed. And let me tell you, she did.
You want to whoop that boyfriend's ass?
Yeah.
Can you just not wait until after the meet?
and they've been together for a very long time. He knows what she does. I'm just like, dude, why would you do that at this point? And I felt so bad for her because she was just a wreck that whole weekend. Absolutely. It was an emotional wreck. Or we had an athlete where they was having a difficult time with their grades and they cried multiple days because they couldn't figure it out. And they were running bad workouts. They got through that time. They, started the next week with workouts. They were great again. Stress is a real thing. These cortisol levels are nonsense. And sometimes it helps you. Don't get it twisted. It does help. But sometimes it could be at your demise and you don't know why. And I say it all the time. If technical, the analogy is if, we have all these technical things for the horizontals, the vertical jumps, the throws. And we can see it like these angles of, launch or, how stiff does the pole need to be to get an adequate height on the pole. Then physiologically and stress levels is to distance runners. Like we need to coach the inside of the athlete instead of the outside because they're going to try to put a mask on to thinking everything is all right. But sometimes inside you got to go and you got to try to help them solve some problems or listen to. So,
absolutely. And track gives you the weird ability, especially when you see them every day. You could tell just by how they're running that workout that day. Will you pull them aside and say, what's going on in that head right now? What's going on? And then they look at you, nothing. And they give you the puppy dog eyes because they can't hide it. They can't hide it from coach. And you're just like, all right, take a walk. Let's go. You guys do the workout. Do your next clip. Let's go. Let's take a walk. What's up? And
let's take a lap.
Let's take a lap. Let's go. I can't run anymore, but I'm going to do it for you. Let's go. Slow down for coach. But yeah, no, it's awesome. And I love all your philosophy. I think that like I said, I'm pumped to have you on Marist. So this is me just homering a little bit right here. But so before we jump out of here, I got to ask you the same question that we ask all of our guests to end out the show. One of our big goals of doing this show was to try and get this out to more of the casuals, right? So that people can hear athletes' stories, coaches' stories about how they got there and make it interesting for people that don't necessarily follow track, right? And also to make this big enough to the casuals where we can get our pros paid, where we can have real leagues, where we could do those types of things, right? So if you had a magic wand and you could fix track and field, get the athletes paid, do what we got to do, how would you fix our sport?
I think we're already doing it. But Netflix, remember Drive to Survive? A lot of people love Formula One now. We're about to have a race in Las Vegas, and those tickets are going at top dollar. Now, granted, where that money go, I don't know. But when Drive to Survive came out, there was a big, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Formula One racing.
I'm more of a NASCAR guy. Before one, I'm kind of here and there.
Okay. So Formula One International, they have people from all over representing most countries, not every company. And it's a dog eat dog world to get into these, world fastest cars that can get down on the straightaway at least 120 miles an hour. And so they did a Netflix special, like The Swing. They did a golf documentary, docuseries. They did a Drive to Survive documentary.
They had the quarterbacks and everything. Yeah, they've been doing it.
Right. I just saw that they are doing a live event with pro golfers in souped-up golf carts that Formula One racers are driving the golf carts. And it's like, who can finish the round fastest and get the best score?
Yeah, so they're doing these now. I hope we don't do those spinoffs because just watching somebody going over the high jump is just poetry in itself, right?
No, Netflix is having a thing with Noah's going to be on it, Fred Curley, and our guest last week, we're talking about how big that the No Allow special on Peacock was.
Yeah, it was huge.
But the only issue is that Netflix and Peacock, they're all paid services.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the issue. Or like finding the Diamond League meets, like they're all on Peacock. So having the meets to be more accessible. And Alex has said many things, like having meets where it's only finals, so it's an hour and a half, it's quick, it's interesting, people can watch, have a sprints night, a distance night, throws night, so that way like the attention is on them. Put things in layman's terms, we've had Sarah Slattery talk about opening it up to DraftKings and FanDuel and being able to bet on it, anything to
even having a drink, a beer at a track meet goes along. If I'm there for 8 hours,
you're right.
Somebody might want a Guinness. I don't know, but we don't want any drunkards walking around thinking.
Why the hell doesn't Red Stripe sponsor the Penn Relays with all the Jamaicans there? Like, what are we doing, guys?
But I think we're moving in that direction where, they're starting to do these things because we have all of this technology and all of the streaming services, Paramount Plus and things like that, Hulu. I think we're moving in that direction. And especially with NBC, the one thing that I do, as you all know, the whole marathon debacle, with running the marathon at 12 p.m. and they still working out stuff. It's rumors are, spreading around saying, oh, the contracts haven't been signed, because I'm definitely a Let's Run purveyor. So, I don't know how much this information is true, but
we had on Jonathan Gault, and he's like, it's crazy that they can't agree to start this. Like, it's like they don't want to do what's best for the athletes because it might be on tape delay. But how many people are watching it at 8 a.m. anyway?
Right.
So like do what's best for the athletes. I feel too, like sometimes it's not always what's in the best interest of the athlete. It's more other people trying to do what's best for themselves.
Yeah. And it's a hard labyrinth. It's so many. And again, going back to what we said earlier, our sport is complicated to, the regular people that's outside of our sport.
The normies.
We make would you say the normals?
Yeah, normies. Yeah. No.
The normies. And we make it complicated within ourselves. And once we can get to a space where we're talking the same language, you take a basketball person, just from training or even just with operations. If you take anybody from any of the NBA teams, the officials, and you take them anywhere across, they know exactly what to do. They got 2 baskets, 90 feet, and they know what to do. They have a whistle. You take any official to any other state, it would be well, we don't do that here, or we do this here. This person a long time ago, you get cafeteria style in the long jump.
We run a 300 hurdles.
We run a 300 hurdles. We don't run a 400 hurdles. We run the 1500 in New York, not the 1600, and or in Illinois, we run the 3 mile instead of the 5. There's so many different nuances that kind of just throws everybody off, and you have to be from that area to understand those nuances. If we can get everybody under the same page and not have USATF or AAU or, things like, if we don't have these people, competing against each other because it's an unregulated market, we'll start to see some change there. And in my opinion, especially working from the youth side of things, going all the way up to the collegiate level, I've seen some things, and it's interesting. It's very interesting. So
yeah, I just wish that we had the ability at this point to have something like the Diamond League that could keep the athletes here stateside, so they don't have to have all these expenses and everything, But then it has to go like, we don't have a lot of track only facilities, or all right.
Yeah,
I want to ask you one thing. Alex and I differ on this, and it's such a simple thing that I think that track did that I love is the blue lines that follow the race for like the Diamond League meets. Like the pacing lines. To me, I look at that. It's like the yellow line in football for the first down. I think it's awesome. I think that'll help average casual fans who don't know what's going on. Like, hey, like they're even with the lights, they're on pace. I think that's great. Alex thinks it's dumb, but
it's a highlighted hockey puck.
I like it.
That went away in 3 years. It's only cool. It's only cool for the big. All right. So if Jakob Ingebrigtsen's in a race, let's do it. If Joe Schmo is in a race, I don't want to see no dotted lines.
No,
I don't want to see high school kids. I don't want to see college kids.
High school meets no. But if you're in the pro diamond leagues, I love it.
If it's a big race, not even just regular diamond leagues. I don't care. They're not running records in diamond leagues. Man,
diamond league this year had
France. Alex in France, they went crazy.
But this is possibly the best diamond league in the history of diamond league, right? This year was ridiculous. But you go back to
the lights.
Years, but it was not because of the lights.
Yes,
no one's looking at those lights. You know what I mean?
Everyone was. Everyone who watched
TV or the racers weren't.
Every time Ingebrigtsen was in a race, I was like, oh, he's on pace.
But how many times are we going to get Jakob Ingebrigtsen?
Now, I think I can come in and bridge both of your schools of thought. Let me see if I can do this. Is me using my de-escalation technique. So it seems to me that both of you would not mind seeing them, but at certain times.
Yep.
I don't championship races, no.
But I will also argue the fact that we have video boards at a lot of these places, and they can very well look up at the board and see themselves and see where they're at. Mm-hmm. That takes a little bit more technique, because you don't want to veer off, on the cheater line or the cheater rail, as one athletes call it.
I'm talking more from a fan's perspective, watching it at home.
I agree with you 100%.
But then when they don't get it, a casual fan's going to go, well, they suck. And that's where it's going to be, where we're looking at it going, okay, Jakob.
Lights one. Jakob was
0.5 away from getting the record. Some casual's going to look and go, he sucks, and that American's worse. He got second.
But it doesn't matter for a championship race, because people are going to watch them anyway. People are going to watch the Olympics, and there's no pacers there. But I love it for the diamond league races where people are there to run fast.
Yeah, no, I mean, and they have rabbits too. The rabbits putting them in position.
We had on one of the best rabbits of all time. We had on Eric Sawinski.
Baby, let's go.
We had him on
our show, man.
We love him.
He was great.
Yeah. So I'll compromise. Put blinking lights on the rabbits instead.
So now we're just running at night. All right, go find the blinking light.
Go find the blinking light. If you drop off pace, you might run off the track.
Could you imagine watching football now and didn't have the first down line? You'd be like, what's going on?
Now, I mean, they have a lot of cool stuff. I mean, the sports science from ESPN, you can, this is the telemetry of this is the percentage, what is the Amazon, the AWS system, where they this is a 15% chance of making, or the probability of making it. Yeah. And then you go from there. Now, it's fun, man.
We had on Patrick Bognaski, his company, they install tracks, and they were saying that there's a lot of even high schools now and pros that they have this technology that goes inside the track, and you can put it with your heart rate monitor, and it can monitor how fast you're going from the actual track itself.
Oh wow, it's
pretty cool stuff.
That's next level.
That AWS would be dope for pole vaulting and for high jumping. It's based off their last few jumps, they've expelled this amount of energy. Should they be able to make this next jump at this level based off their last meets? Maybe see, track and field is built for sports science. Honestly, if we could just do that and get that really big, they did it for Usain Bolt. Outside of that, they don't care anymore.
Or just put things in layman's terms to the casual fan,
Now, let's not do this. Let's not complicate our sport and
I agree.
Technology.
That's why I just want them to say things in layman's terms, all right, see that guy, Ryan Krauser? Go to your local bowling alley, pick up a 16-pound bowling ball, and see how far you get through it. I think people would be like, holy shit. Wow, that thing is that heavy and he's throwing it that far. Or Mondo Duplantis, he's jumping over your house.
Go stand on top of your house and imagine falling down onto a pad.
So even if they explain things or they put up a stupid thing of a bus on its side and they should Mondo go, something that will help explain it to layman's terms. And not only show me 4 laps of the 10K. I want to watch the whole race.
Oh my God. Yeah. Was it the 10K or was it 4 laps? Because I've only seen 5 minutes of a 30-minute race. When did they? Yeah. Oh, I get you. I'm going to call Otto Bolden and Kara Goucher, and I'm going to pass along your suggestions. Okay.
Well, listen,
we're trying to get Otto on the show. Okay. Otto, what are you doing, man? Let's go.
That's why at like at times I like watching them on Peacock because it's the world feed and they don't go to commercial. They show every event, and and you don't get all that fluff like like these little silly story. Like you watch the races, but I think some of that fluff is also good for the casual fan to know someone's background. Like we had on Clayton Murphy, and he's like, why don't they interview us before we run their meet rather than right afterwards when we're breathing heavy? Like how has your training been? And then you can tell things during the race. Like, oh well, he's been sick this week, so like people have a better understanding of exactly what's going on.
You know what, NBC, my last begging question is just give us picture in picture, man. You could fade away from the 10K, do whatever you want. Just throw it in the bottom corner for us nerds. That's all we want. We look at our phones all day. All we want is a bottom corner of dudes still running, okay? And chicks still running, please.
Yes.
We don't want much. We're simple.
Well, I'm excited for the Olympics. We'll see what new technology they have, or how they approach the storylines of all of our athletes. And
there's going to be
it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun.
I'm just pumped because I think that that there's a lot of distance runners in America who can do where is Grant Fisher going to sign? Where are all these Bowen people going to sign? Like there's a lot of storylines going into this, and obviously we have Noah, and what are our two girls from New Jersey going to do? What are Sid and a thing what are they going to do?
Love them. All right, let's put GoPros on everybody and let's do that. All right. With that, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast.
No, this is awesome, man. I feel like I'm William Ginsburg doing the full Ginsburg on Sunday morning. I was on another podcast earlier. This is one of the more popular podcasts as well. So no, I really appreciate you guys reaching out to me and giving me a chance to talk to you guys. This is fun and just uplift coaches out there, or your general audience on how we can make track and field a little less confusing and just understand that we're just normal people. So
once again, he is Billy Poole-Harris. He's the assistant coach over at Marist College for men's and women's cross country and track and field. Hyatt, before we hop out of here, anything you got to say?
This was an absolute blast. It's just great, hearing so many different perspectives on this show, because everyone's story is different, how they got involved, and just hearing your story, how you might have used a situation that wasn't ideal for you as a youth and turned that into a lifelong passion and an amazing career. So thank you for coming on. It was an absolute blast.
Yes, and the importance of being a parent. You can have an impact on your child's life that you may not realize. So thank you to your mama for getting you out of there. And now you're here today talking with us. Yeah. So I'm absolutely, like I've stated a few times, absolutely pumped that, you're in the Red Fox family now. I think, Marist did amazing things hiring you, and, you said you're here to stay. You don't want to move anymore. And that music to my ears. So that makes me happy to hear. So once again, we are talking in ovals. If you like what you heard, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. We will be back again next week. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. So long.